Okay, we've talked a lot about pacing and using heart rates and swimming races correctly. The first 50 building, making a transition, building the threshold, and then with 35 seconds to go, going max effort. We spent a lot of time discussing that, how to train for that. My second year, I believe, here at EC Santa Cruz, we're at a conference one year, and the first session in the morning, they're swimming fast. They're getting a lot of kids in finals. This was fairly new to still for a lot of the team, and just they were okay that first morning session, but they weren't swimming as fast as I knew that they could swim. So in between trials and finals, we talked about fear, we talked about like being able to, go out fast enough. They were kind of like holding back a little bit too much, not being where they should, and they're really not letting loose at the end. They were tentative. And they were swimming from fear. So I talked about that and like how to prepare for finals. So at night, swim after swim after swim for finals, our swimmers were just blasting out. I mean, they were starting out at like 180 heart rate, just jacking it up, and then just trying to hold that as long as they could. So by the 100, they were, pretty taxed. They started to come down, and then a lot of them would just suck it up, for everything for the final part of their swim. Well, the problem with this that we've already discussed, somebody who was trying to go, a target, let's say a young woman trying to go 154 to 200 free, she might have been 155 by swimming this way. So good swim, best time. Her best time might have been 158. 155 is good, but she really should have been 154. So after about the third, fourth race during the finals that night, I grabbed one of the team captains and I said, "Okay, what's going on? This is counterintuitive to what we were trying to achieve." And so the captain said, something that I've always kind of remembered is, after I left the room, the captains got together and they said, "Listen, we got to get out of this. We got to stop swimming from fear." And the captain, told the team, he says, "Everybody swimming tonight, I want you to just rage. Just rage." And it's like, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "I told him just go out as hard as you can and just be tough and be, and hang on and just go." So somebody who might have been qualified in the morning at 157 with the best time at 158 and in a good position for finals went 155 instead of going 154. But in this case, they needed to. They needed to rage. They needed to do something to gain confidence, to get them to the point where they weren't afraid to hurt, to swim outside of the fear. So the point of this little talk is, you can talk about this, you can train, you can prepare, but the biggest thing that is still going to hinder people is fear. They're going to be afraid that this is too slow. They're going to be afraid that this isn't fast enough. They might panic a little bit and start going too soon. They're going to be afraid that they're going to have too much at the end. It's fear. Fear that gets in the way. So with all the physiological stuff and all the training and all the discussion that we had behind us went out the window. And in our case, for that first night of finals, they had to deal with their fear. And the captain was intuitively very smart about that. To get over their fear, they just raged. They just went out hard. They got out in front, and they just raced people. So sometimes raging, what we call rage, sometimes that's just what you got to do. You got to break out of your funk. Sometimes the best thing may not be the most scientific thing to do. It may not be the most experienced thing to do, but sometimes you just have to rage. Sometimes you just have to go. Now, if you're going to rage, you better be in great shape, because this is going to hurt through here. Your lactate levels are going to be high. You will not be able to sustain it. You cannot swim at total sprint speed, for that long. So it is going to start to tail off. And then what they did is they just were in great shape, and they just continued to rage everything they had on that final 30 seconds or so. So for that night, that's what worked for us. So sometimes a kid just needs to go and keep going and go hard, because that's the only thing they can do at the time. The second night, the next morning, we settled down. They got, it was like the whole team was like, hey, we could swim fast. Their fear was gone, and they were able to fall back more into this. And then they started hitting the times like that 154 that we were looking for. And they really, really swam well the rest of the meet. In fact, the same team captain came to me at the end of the meet and just said, we've never had a meet like this. We've never had a meet where we were this good with this many good swims. So sometimes it's got to be counterintuitive. Sometimes you just have to rage.